While I was growing up, people always asked me what it was like to have 7 sisters, and I always don't really know how to respond to this because I don't know otherwise. But in this video, I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that I've learned along the way, some of the challenges of having 7 sisters, and then I'll go into some key takeaways. If you haven't been here before, my name is John, and Inner Atlas is a channel where I focus on finding deeper meaning, connection, and purpose. So one of the things that I really appreciated about having 7 sisters was that I was always willing and able to express my emotions compared to some of my male counterparts. I think this obviously comes from the fact that I have sisters that are able to express their emotions openly, and also seeing that my mom was also to do the same. I will say though that when I was growing up, my dad didn't express his emotions openly, and sometimes I felt like he was bottling and keeping his emotions in. And so I really appreciated that I was able to do the opposite of that because I saw how he was struggling. Another thing that I developed was my sense of empathy and compassion for not just my family, but also at my workplace, for the clients I serve, and even just strangers. Because I grew up with so many sisters and felt really comfortable around girls and women, I found that when I was older, most of my friends were females, and I gravitated towards having female friends. I will say that one of the downsides to this was not being able to have close relationships with males. And I always found myself in situations where it was kind of awkward, and I maybe even sometimes avoided certain friendships or situations where I had to be with another male friend one-on-one. One of the benefits of having sisters, especially 2 sisters that were older, was that they were very nurturing, and I always found them to be a lot more mature for their age, and this also rubbed onto me, made me feel like I was more mature than my male friends when I was growing up. I also felt that compared to my male friends and acquaintances, I often had a better sense of fashion, and I also had a little bit more interpersonal skills because my sisters were very social people. One of the challenges I had with having a lot of sisters was that sometimes I felt alone and like an outcast. This is probably due to the fact that my sisters had common interests that were different from me, and some of the activities and things they were able to do was also different from what I was interested in. For example, I would like sports and video games, and my sisters would like to go shopping or spend time with their friends. And I sometimes had to convince them to play with me, otherwise I wouldn't have anyone to play with. But they, on the other hand, can do their favorite activities with each other and didn't struggle with that as much. This leads me to my next point, in that I sometimes got bored of doing their activities. This can include like watching TV shows that I wasn't very interested in, or even when I was younger, having to spend time with some of their friends. And I guess the last potential drawback was that I frequently got into fights and arguments with my sisters. Now, I can't say that this is just due to having sisters, but I felt like a few of my sisters were perhaps, I would say, more emotionally dysregulated compared to some other sisters, and this kind of led to some conflicts. An example I can think of was that there was one time when I was younger, I think I was about maybe 7 or 8, and out of nowhere, my sisters just started yelling at me, telling me to clean the home. I remember not responding very well to this, and we started throwing household items at each other, and later on we would both get in trouble. But when I think back about it, I was like, where did this come from? So that's just an example of what might happen on a weekly basis. When I was younger, I used to think that having 7 sisters as a curse. I remember being just 4 years old when finding out that my 5th sister, Susan, was born. And I remember throwing this huge temper tantrum while my grandma was babysitting us, because my mom called home and told my grandma that she had a baby girl. And I also remember the emotional moment where my mom gave birth to her 7th and last daughter. I remember going to the hospital with my family to visit my mom, and I remember her looking a bit sad even though she just had a child. And I remember her telling me that she was sad and disappointed because she was not able to give me a baby brother. But when I got older and became an adult, I started reflecting and realized that having 7 sisters is actually a blessing. I have gained so much respect and appreciation for women after seeing what some of my sisters have gone through, including my mom. 4 of my sisters have multiple children while also having bachelor's degrees, and I think when it's all said and done, I think most of them, if not all of them, will have master's degrees and children as well. I remember seeing how some of my sisters had to go through the pain of pregnancy. One sister had several miscarriages, having to deal with infections such as mastitis, things that me as a male will never have to deal with. I'm also very grateful for how empathetic, loyal, and supportive my sisters are. I remember going through my first major breakup when I was 23 years old, and this is about 11 years ago now. And having my sisters support me at all hours of the day throughout that process was extremely meaningful to me. Throughout time and history, women have been severely oppressed, and it's still continuing in certain areas of the world. I think we've done a lot to narrow the gap in the gender divide, but there's still work to be done. I know it's kind of cliche, but women are the origin of life and should be held with the utmost respect. So I hope you enjoyed listening to my story of what it's like to grow up with 7 sisters, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye-bye.